The life you want does not happen by accident. You need to create it. Hey ladies, I am leadership development coach Kathy Archer, and I am trying this a second time around because I just lost connection. And so I'm going to try this and cross my fingers that we're going to get good connection and be able to power through today's live. And so whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the replay, thank you for being here. If this is something beneficial to you and you think other women might benefit from it, please hit share so that we can make sure that other women are connecting and finding that the way that they can find themselves, the way that they can balance both leadership and life. What I've noticed over time is that there's many women who are struggling, many women who are feeling overwhelmed and frustrated and, struggling to balance work and life and not really enjoying leadership anymore. What happens often is they move from that place of, frontline to team leader to supervisor to manager, director. And then, somewhere along the way, either it happens slowly and gradually, or at some point they just kind of wake up and realize, I don't like my life anymore. I don't like what's going on. I'm not happy with the way I'm struggling to balance everything that I've got on my plate and my health and my family. I'm not really enjoying leadership anymore. It feels like it's just turned into a grind. And that what they feel like often is that they're stuck. Many of you, perhaps, or, some of your women leaders around you or coworkers or peers or friends or family maybe feel this as well. You've got to this point and you feel like, I don't think I can change things. I mean, you've created the status, you've climbed up the ladder and you're at this position, and if you sort of walk away from it, you'll never get it back. If you were to choose a different way, you would lose income, and let's face it, that's a huge component for many of us. You'd lose your vacation. I was talking with somebody yesterday who's been with their organization for 15 years or more. When you walk away from something like that, you're losing a lot of perks and benefits that go with that. So many women are feeling like, there's nothing I can do. I just have to suck it up. I just have to deal with this. I just have to put up with this. Whatever, this is just life. There's no other way. Actually, there is another way. There's another way for you to figure out how to still do leadership, still do the job you're doing, and find more joy and balance and peace and harmony in your life. But you have to stop long enough, you have to pause long enough to start to plan, to deliberately and consciously create a different way. It's not going to happen overnight. It doesn't happen by accident. There isn't such thing as luck and you wake up tomorrow and things will be different. You have to stop. You have to step back and look at things. You have to make some hard decisions. You have to do some work. I'm not going to lie to you. This is not easy stuff. But is it easy doing what you're doing every day? Are you enjoying getting up and going around and around and around and not having fun at work anymore? Not feeling like you're making a difference? Not feeling like you are also having time for yourself and your family? No, that sucks too. So you have a choice. You can keep going down that path and notice your health sliding and your marriage sliding and all of those relationships sliding, or you can turn it around now. You can decide to pause, to stop and start to see things differently. It's entirely up to you. But if you want to do that, there's some ways to do that. And so I thought today I would kind of do a little bit of a review of some of the stuff we've been talking about for the past few weeks. So each week, as you know, I do a guide sheet. And so you can find those at silverrivercoaching.com/guides. So if you go there, you can find all of the guides that I'm going to talk about over the next few minutes. Some of them you might have done already. Some of them might be new. You might have missed one along the way. But these are the things that you can do to start creating the life you want. Now, I just opened the doors yesterday to my program Blueprint for Change. Done some tweaks this time. Kind of excited to see how it rolls out this time because there's now 2 levels. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit down the road today. But before we get there, I want to talk about some of the stuff that's already out there for you that you can already start using to create some changes in your life, to start to plan. Because remember, the life you want doesn't happen by accident. You have to deliberately and consciously and purposefully plan it and do the hard work to get there. That's what makes the changes for you. So let me just find my notes here, because I made some notes, because there's a lot of stuff that I've been talking about lately, and I want to make sure that we are going through them. So a few weeks ago, I started with one of the guides called Examine Your Life, and I gave you 7 journal prompts to sort of do each day. And what this does is it starts to just awaken your sort of thought process. It awakens that sort of inner guide inside of you, starts making you think differently. Well, that's one of the things clients often tell me is, wow, Kathy, you ask hard questions and you make me think. That's the whole point. We don't think often enough. What we spend most of our time doing is just going through life, sliding through. We just follow the path of least resistance, even though it feels ucky sometimes, even though it's stressful, even though it's painful, we just move along that path. Sometimes we have to jolt ourselves out of that, and that requires us to sort of step back and look at things in a different way. So these 7 questions in this guide start to, and I encourage you to kind of do one a day, sit down for, 5 or 10 minutes a day and look at the question and do some journaling about it. What are my values? What are my strengths? Where do I want to be in a year from now? Where do I want to be in 5 years from now? What's important to me? When we start to look at some of those things, we can begin to recognize what's working in our life and maybe where we've let things slide. Maybe where we've stepped back from some of the important things in life, our health, our relationships, our commitment to making a difference. Many of us have a bigger purpose or a bigger commitment, whether that's volunteerism or whether that's, some of the work we do around changing people's lives. We've kind of stepped away from that, and so we got to come back to, hey, I still want to do that. I used to do more volunteering with seniors, and I have that on my list right now as something I need to get back to in the next couple months because I miss it. And I know it's something that's really important to me. And so when I get busy and stuff happens, I can start to lose that. For me, I've got a list of the things that I'm working on this year, and I know that that one is going to come into play somewhere around September. I'm going to pull that list back in, look at it and go, oh yeah, I need to find a place to do some volunteering with seniors. Because I know that I am more than my work and my family. I know that I have a role to play in my community, and I have that ability to make that impact with seniors, particularly for me. Maybe it's something different for you. What have you been missing in your life? Where have you not been doing some of that stuff that maybe makes you feel good, makes the rest of the life that you do feel better? Come back to some of that stuff. So that's the first worksheet that I did. Then what I talked about was one called Changing Mind Chatter, and I think they're numbered on the page, and again, it's silverrivercoaching.com/guides. So then number 8 was Changing Mind Chatter. So sometimes when you've taken that step back and you've started to re-examine your life and you go, wait a minute, I've been neglecting my husband for the last, year, or I've realized that I have not set boundaries at work, and so now I'm not taking breaks, I'm having health issues, I'm ignoring the need to book a doctor's appointment, and I need to deal with that. So sometimes when you do that, then you start to have this inner mind chatter that says things like, I don't know if I want to do that. Now's not the time. Just deal with it later. It's things like, what will other people say? I can't do that. It's all that mind chatter that goes on in your head and stops you from taking the next step. And sometimes it's things like, this is really important. You need to do this. And you have to stop and go, wait a minute. In the big scheme of things, is it really that important? Just because, there's 3 people at the office that are going, this needs to be done now, you might need to step back and go, does it really need to be done now? Is this the most important thing for me to do today? And so sometimes you have to re-engage with that mind chatter and go, hey, wait a minute, what are you saying in my head? No. That's not true. There's a different way. And so that worksheet helps you start looking at the inner mind chatter that you have. Often what we're doing when we have that inner mind chatter is we have judgments of ourselves. We have opinions of ourselves. We have created these expectations and rules in our head that aren't often true, that aren't often going to help us move forward, and they're actually keeping us stuck. And so we have to look at those judgments. You're not smart enough. You're not capable enough. You can't do that. Nobody's going to like it. Nobody's going to follow you. Nobody's going to believe you. All of that stuff is that inner mind chatter that gets in the way of us moving to that next step. So that was worksheet number 8. Number 9 was taking back your power. So the first thing we do is we start to have that inner mind chatter about what's not, how we're not good enough. And that's usually what it is. You're not smart enough. You're not talented enough, whatever. The second part then is that we then tend to blame others. We tend to give our power away by saying it's his fault that I'm too busy. It's her fault that I, can't set boundaries. It's this position, there's so much going on that this position is crazy. And we start to put the blame out there to other people or to circumstances. If the political climate was different, if the contract was set up different, if I wasn't a woman, we if it away, really. And so when we blame or when we wait for things to change, as soon as this busy time is over, as soon as the contract's sorted out, as soon as, then what happens is we're not taking responsibility and we're giving our power away. And so this worksheet number 9 is called Take Your Power Back. And what I want you to do in that one is just start to look at where you've given your power away. Where have you blamed or where are you waiting for somebody else? The next worksheet, number 10, is the flip side of that. So it's becoming response able. So when we give our power away, we're not being responsible. We're saying somebody else is responsible for what's going on in our lives. When we take that power back, we start to say, but what can I do? What can I say? What can I do? How can I impact things? What can I change? So when you're feeling that overwhelm, you can sit down and look at your workload and you can maybe figure out a better organizational system, or maybe you can go have a talk with your boss about the workload. I was just talking to a client the other day and she said they started looking at all of the stuff that she was doing, her and her boss together, and they realized there was stuff that really it wasn't in her job description and somebody else should be doing. And they started shifting some of that. She just picked it up because she actually enjoyed it. And so when she kind of stepped back and looked at her workload, she started to create a more balanced workload that was more manageable. But she had to take responsibility for that. 3 months prior to that, she was just in overwhelm and she was caught up in all the cycle of it. And it was just like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And at the end of the day, she felt frazzled and she would come back in the next day and feel like she was overwhelmed. And so she had to stop and look at her workload, sit down with her boss and say, can we talk about this? And that's what we have to do, is take that responsibility back. I wrote a blog post around that time that, talked about being response able, and it's changing your mindset. And the example that I used in the blog post was, when it's raining outside, you can bitch and moan and whine about it, or you can grab an umbrella, or you can, feel irritated and annoyed by it, or you can tilt your face up and allow it to just, touch your cheeks and just be grateful that we live in a world where we have, clean rain for the most part, and recognize that it's growing the flowers and plants. And when you shift that, it just changes things for you. That's becoming response able. When we can flip that around, things start to change for us. So that was worksheet number 10. Moving on. Number 11 was about intentional change. So we started to look at, if I want a life that's different, I got to stop blaming other people. I got to become responsible. I got to look at those thoughts that are going on in my head and what's getting in the way. And then I have to sit down and start to intentionally create the life I want. And there's 3 steps in this guide that you want to look at. And again, those guides are at silverrivercoaching.com/guides. You have to start looking at who is it or how is it or what am I looking for in my, quote, perfect life or ideal life? What kind of work life do I want? What do I want my health to look like? What do I want my relationships to look like? If you're in a leadership position, what's the impact I want to have? What's the relationship with my staff? How effective do I want to be? What personality and leadership traits do I need to develop to get there? You have to look at that. What do I want to be like? What's kind of the end result? Then you have to come back to, and what am I experiencing now? You have to look at, well, I'm, having some challenges with staff. I'm, things aren't going so great on my team. I'm feeling frazzled and overwhelmed. I'm overweight. I'm not spending enough time with my kid, whatever it is. And then you got to look at that gap in the middle. And then you got to start intentionally figuring out, what do I need to do to move along that gap? So maybe it's conflict resolution or boundary setting, or maybe you need to start going to the gym more, but you got to start figuring out, what are the things I need to do? If you want to be that most effective leader, that most impactful leader, and find some of that joy in life, you need to deliberately do that. It's not going to happen. If you don't plan this, you're just going to feel frazzled and overwhelmed day after day. You're going to see your health slide. You're going to feel more stressed. Your relationships are going to start to fall apart, and you're just not going to enjoy leadership anymore. So what's the point in being there, right? If you're not finding some sense of joy, impact, that you're not doing good work and finding that you're enjoying life, why bother, right? Because if it's all about the money, then you're going to not really enjoy it, and you're going to resent what's going on. There's nothing wrong with being a leader. There's nothing wrong with making good money and having nice holidays and a good benefits package. Where the challenge comes in is when you don't get to enjoy that. So figure out how to figure out where you are, where you want to be, and what you need to do to get there. That's what's going to make the difference for you. So then on the last call that we did 2 weeks ago, I talked about committing to that plan. Sitting down and committing to, I'm going to sit down and do some of this work over the next 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to plan. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to figure out what can I do differently? What do I want? How do I need to achieve that? What are the things I need to learn? What are the conversations I need to have? What are the habits I need to create? What are the changes I need to do? What are the conversations I need to have with other people to make some of that happen? That's a plan. And you need to make a commitment to sit down and do that. That's not just going to happen when sometime you magically have time for it. You have to commit to it. Just like you schedule an appointment with someone else, or you book a time at the doctor or the dentist, you need to put time in your day timer. You need to schedule it in and not let anything get in the way to plan your life. It's not going to happen by accident. I'm going to say that again and again and again. The life you want will not be a fluke. It's not going to happen by accident. It's not just one day you're going to wake up and everything's going to be different. If you want something different, if you want a different experience of leadership in life, you must create that. You must stop. You must pause. You must take some time, do the hard thinking and deliberating, and you must plan that. And you must plan the steps that you're going to take. And you've got to plan how to get over the humps and bumps when they hit. Because let me tell you, there are going to be humps and bumps. It's not going to be easy all the time. You have to consciously, deliberately plan that. So you can take all of those worksheets that I've been going through and you can start this process. This is not rocket science. It's not something that's really, really hard to do, but it does take time and structure. Some people are finding that they need more structure and more guidance for that. And so that's where I create a blueprint for change. So I've started talking to more and more women over the last few years thinking, what is it that I can do for them? For me, one of the biggest changes came in my life when I got a coach and I started having somebody kind of pull me back and start thinking differently. They asked me those hard questions that had me go, whoa, haven't thought about that in a while. Or, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that and I need to think about it for a while. And when I started to think about things and I started to see things in a different way, that's when I started to plan a different way for me. I took that step back from being in my position at work. I'd been with my organization for almost 20 years. And I knew that I wanted a different way. And so at that point in time, not everybody's going to quit their job, but at that point in time for me, I had to step back and go, okay, if I want to do this, what is it that I want differently? And so I had to kind of think about what kind of, do I want to go to another job or do I want to start my own business? So at the time I was applying at colleges and universities to be an instructor in some of their programs. I was looking at other jobs online to see what was available. And I had this kind of idea in my head about starting my own business. So I was also starting to look at entrepreneurism and what, you could do, what you needed to do to create your own business, starting to, connect with people who were doing that kind of stuff. When I decided that's kind of what I wanted to do, start my own business, then I had to figure out what training do I need, what systems do I need to put in place, how am I going to finance it, how am I going to survive financially in the meantime. And probably more importantly, I had to figure out how to have those conversations with my husband about that and how to tell my boss I wasn't going to, stay in the leadership role that we had just, made some significant changes for, and I was kind of set for a few years ahead of me. So that was the planning that I had to do. But in order to do that, I had to do a lot of stepping back, a lot of thinking differently, a lot of creating systems and backup plans. If that doesn't work, then what am I going to do? Or if I can't figure this out, how else can I do it? So that was some of the stuff that I started to do. And, I think about that when we're talking about planning. Again, the life you want does not happen by accident. And yet, I think we forget that sometimes. We forget how many times in life we do plan. We write grocery lists, we plan budgets, if you're doing an event, whether it's your parents' anniversary or a birthday party, or you are planning a conference for your organization, there's a ton of planning that goes into those things. We look in our organizations at strategic planning and we set up goals. In our lives, we look at retirement planning. We do menu plans. All of those things are plans. But what about a life plan? What about a plan for you to, look at how am I going to fit everything in a way that feels good for me? Because if you're just cramming it all in, trust me, it's not going to feel good. It's going to feel like everything's been crammed in. Dance practice for your kids and the volunteer board that you sit on and the meetings you have to attend for work. And at the end of the day, you're going to go, oh yeah, I didn't work out again. Or man, when was the last time my husband and I went on a date? Or when was the last time I had a conversation with that staff about her mom? When did I ever sit down and do that policy manual? That's actually something I want to do because I think it's going to move that program forward. And weeks and months and years go by, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what happened with time? If you don't plan, nothing's going to change. So that's what Blueprint for Change is. It's helping you create that blueprint, that strategy, that outline for you to look at where am I now, where do I want to be, and what do I need to do to get there. And it's a process. Blueprint for Change has something like 27 worksheets in it, 29 videos, and what you do is you start to create levels of what I call blueprints. So, that first cursory level of where am I now, where do I want to be, what do I need to do to get there, and then we take a deeper look at those same sort of questions again. Okay, where am I really? Is it that I don't know how to organize my day and that's what's creating the overwhelm, or is it that I have too many things on my to-do list and I need to have a conversation with maybe my boss, or maybe look at my own life and the things I've added in and take some things off? I have one client who, bless her soul, is, heavily involved in 2 or 3 community boards. That's great if you have the bandwidth for that. She doesn't. And so what she feels is constantly frazzled. She feels constantly pulled in too many directions because she literally is pulled in too many directions. And even though maybe her workload in her paid job isn't quite so bad, in her brain every day is all of this stuff from the 3 different boards that she's sitting on. So she's trying to filter that in the background about what she's trying to sneak in between other things, and she just can't do it all. So for her to sit down and say, where am I now? And start to really look deeper at that, what she would probably notice is I'm overcommitted. It's not that I have too much on my to-do list at work. It's not that I don't know how to organize. It's that I'm overcommitted. And that's going to be a little bit of a wake-up call for her if she was to do that. Because that's going to set the stage for then She doesn't need to go to the stationery store and buy another day timer and figure out another system for time management. She needs to learn how to say no. And that's a whole different issue than reorganizing your papers and your emails and that kind of stuff. And so when you look at that as your starting point, then your ending point is very different. And so that's what we do in Blueprint for Change, is where am I really, really at? What's the issue? And then we look at, and then what do I want? Because again, sometimes we really haven't looked at what we want. You know, we say, I just want to be happier. But what does that mean? You know, does that mean you're going to paint and wine night once a month? Or does it mean that you have some quiet time at home to read? Or does it mean that maybe there's a tiny little tweak in your workload so that you get to do this other part that you really enjoy? So you got to figure out both sides of it, right? Where am I now and where do I really want to be? And then in Blueprint for Change, we start walking you through, what do I need to do to get there? And again, we come back to again and again and again, what is that inner mind chatter that gets in the way? What is that saboteur saying? What are the roadblocks? What are the humps and bumps that I'm going to hit along the way that I need to be really honest about and be prepared for as I start, you know, following this plan? So Blueprint for Change does it. Now, as I said, I've now created 2 levels. So one level is the standard self-study level. You walk through the worksheets and the lessons on your own, at your own pace, do your own thing. And for many women, that's enough. The second tier that I've now created gives you some one-to-one coaching with me, 3 one-to-one coaching sessions where I'll help you sort of in the beginning, middle, and end, where we look at where am I now, where do I want to be, and what's the plan for me to get there. So that's that extra piece for those of you that are really looking for that guidance as you move through this. So again, it's at myblueprintforchange.com. You can pop over there right now. The doors are open. They'll be open till June 30th, so you've got a tiny window of time to get in there and check it out. But you know, what you're going to do in My Blueprint for Change is strategically change the direction of your life. You're going to strategically, which means you're going to stop and you're going to pause and you're going to step back and you're going to plan and you're going to be deliberate and you're going to be conscious. You're not just kind of going to go, yeah, let's see what I can do tomorrow differently. You're going to plan tomorrow and the next day. You're going to figure the path out, figure the steps out for you to do that. Because, again, I'll say this one more time, the life you want does not happen by accident. Trust me, nothing happens by accident. It is something that you need to create. It's that you need to be deliberate about, that you need to be conscious about, you need to think about, and you need to create that in your life. So if that's something you're interested in, again, go to myblueprintforchange.com. You'll find it all there. If you want to go back and go through some of the guides that I talked about earlier today, that's silverrivercoaching.com/guides. There's no new guide for today. I've just kind of reviewed the old ones. My guess is you haven't been through them all, so go back and figure out which ones you've done and which ones you haven't done, which ones might be helpful for you. Check it out. You know, there's lots there. The other thing is I've got 2 more webinars happening next week. And so I'll put the link in the notes here today, but 2 more webinars, End Your Inner Turmoil. So many of you are feeling that. So I've got a couple webinars coming up that can help you kind of look at what's going on inside of you and start making some shifts there. So those are happening Wednesday and Thursday next week, I think. So make sure you register for those if that's something you're interested in. And absolutely, if this has been helpful, please share it in your groups. Make sure that you post it on your page so other women leaders can start to find more of that peace and balance that they're looking for between both their leadership and life. If you have any questions, post them below. I'll make sure that I follow this and answer any questions that come up after, so that if there's anything you want to know, if you have a question now, post it before I finish up here in a minute. But know that it is possible to make some changes. Know that you do not have to stay stuck, frustrated. You do not have to feel alone and isolated, that there is other ways. Last call, I shared, 5 or 6 stories of women who have done some of this and made some of the changes deliberately and consciously, where they've stepped back and I've helped coach them through that. And it is possible. you can still do leadership, you can still enjoy leadership, and you can still find a way of balancing that with your life. There's a way to do it all. You have to be deliberate about it. You have to plan it. You have to create it. The life you want does not happen by accident. Are you tired of hearing me say that? But it's true. It doesn't happen by accident. It's not a fluke. It's not luck. If you look around you and you see other women doing a better job than you are, in your opinion, at balancing leadership in life, it's because they're working at it, because they're trying different things, because they are being deliberate about creating that. That life didn't happen for them just by accident. They've done something to get it. And if you want that, you too just need to step back, do some of the work, inner work, take some looking inside you, and create that life. If you want some help doing that, make sure that you go to myblueprintforchange.com, register for the program now. The doors are open again, like I say, until June 30th. So make sure that you sign up for that now. The free webinar is also next week. I'll put the link in the side, and I will talk to you next Thursday. Thanks, ladies. Have an awesome day.